Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, welcome everybody and good afternoon. My name is David Hepburn. I'm from Actionstep, and welcome to our webinar today. So with over 10,000 users globally, we here at Actionstep are acutely aware of the changing landscape in legal practice. Whether virtual law and virtual practice, whether more automation or more increased automation is occurring, there's regulatory change that's coming at us, all of it is disrupting. And if you're positioned correctly, all of it could be an opportunity for you if you're prepared. Just a couple of items. We're going to have three parts to this session, this 30-minute session. Today, we're going to be focused on some major themes, and Duncan's going to present those and introduce himself shortly. We're going to talk about anti-money laundering for the main portion of this presentation, and then we'll finish up with some tactical considerations. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, then please use the chat function. There's actually a questions tab on the right of your screen, or wherever it is on your screen, that you'll be able to log any questions that you'd like to ask. At the end of the session, I'll sort of curate those questions and we'll maybe address those then. Anyway, thank you very much for attending. I really welcome you to the session. I hope this is the first of a number of webinars we're going to do in due course. And I'd like to start off by handing over to Duncan McDougall, who's going to talk to you about change and its impact on legal practice.
Thanks for that, David. Hello, everybody. So I wanted to open up this webinar by talking about some of the trends that we're seeing around the world when it comes to technology within law firms. So just like the government has caught up with technology and methods that people are using to launder money, we're seeing that changes in the legal tech landscape are occurring. Changes that end up affecting lawyers like yourselves and how you run your practice. There are three main points that I want to talk about, and the first of this will tie into what Scotty is going to be presenting later on. It'll take you through, when he talks about AML, it'll take you through the right repositories for the information that you need to gather. And as you're going to see, once you know what you need to capture, you're only most of the way through the battle. But you still want to have that information be able to be entered into something that you have confidence will guide you through what you need to know and allow you to extract that information later. You're going to see two types of tools emerge to address compliance issues like AML and trust. Now, the first will be prescriptive. It will tell you what you need to do. It'll understand the process inside and out, and it will step you through it as you go. The second type will be customizable, a solution that allows you to take the process that you already know and build it out so that it's working for yourself. Now, both of these will obviously have pros and cons, and which type will be a better fit for you will depend on, firstly, your existing knowledge and also the amount of time you want to spend. However, the best option out of the two that we would recommend would actually be a mix. One that knows the process, comes with you pre-built and ready to go, but allows you to still customize and adjust things to suit your own needs. AML has highlighted this, that a rigid system that does not have any customization capabilities leaves you unprepared for changes that are introduced to you, such as AML compliance coming through now. The other trend that we're seeing for legal practices is a move to a virtual office functionality. Now, a virtual office allows you to define your office not as the space within four walls, but as any place. It's the move from not having to go to your desk to do work because your desk is right next to your filing cabinet. And so while some practices are literally closing down the office and working from home, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way you can run a virtual office. It is more about being able to do the work where you are. The benefits of a virtual office is that you're able to spend more time with your clients. A common thread that we see from many modern day surveys of lawyers is that they enjoy most about their job is actually spending time with the clients, helping them with their legal problems. And operating in a virtual office environment allows you to do that. The ability to be able to access your information from your laptop or tablet means that you can meet your clients at their offices or at the cafe down the road. You're not limited to your own practice's location. And with that information that you need, you can operate from anywhere. It also allows you to achieve a healthy working, living environment, one that will cater to you getting all the work that you need to done, but still allowing you to drop the pet off at the vet or catch the kids' afternoon school performance. It's also important to note that a virtual office is not just about having the files you want where you are, but being able to do the work where you are. So last year I was talking to a barrister in New Zealand who told a story about how a judge required a particular document before the case could proceed. And the barrister was able to produce that document in court and email it within minutes, and everything was able to progress then and there. So having a cloud accessible document creation tool saved them from having the case adjourned, saving them days, possibly weeks. Virtual offices can also affect how you are communicating with your clients. A good example of this is that there's a firm in Christchurch who has built a chat service onto their own website that is using artificial intelligence, something that a random person can go to and go to the firm's website, type in a basic legal question and have it answered. And the service cuts out the wasted time answering mundane questions for the lawyers, things that they don't actually feel comfortable charging for, but are of immediate help to their clients. More importantly, if the question is not a simple one, then the question can get routed to a staff member so that they can reach out to that person. And it's a great way for them to pick up new business. There are even simpler options as well. You are able to create things, just a contact us form on your own website is a great way for a new client to be able to engage with you. And once you've captured those new clients, the ability to be able to share information with them through different channels means that you can communicate in ways that saves the lawyer's time, but also suits the needs of tech-savvy clients. And last of all, that leads to my last point, which is about using the tools that work for you. We're seeing a trend within the US where there's a rise of websites that will actually create legal documents automatically. The client fills in a series of questions, and for a nominal fee, they get a legally accurate document at the end. And this is another example of technology reducing the time required to be able to create services. Once the actual process is all set up, it's mostly automatic. It's faster and easier for the client, and the actual work done for the firm is greatly reduced. Again, an important consideration for this, however, is that such tools do leave room for you to recognise and capture when the automation is not a good fit. So if you can flag that a particular client's needs warrant your own attention, then you can stop the automation and suggest they contact you to discuss things instead. And this is important, as at that point, you're adding value to your client. The knowledge and help that you're able to provide will have the most benefit to the client and the highest value. Lastly, when new requirements such as AML come along, the additional admin work that you have to do as a lawyer to meet those requirements should hopefully be offset somewhere else by automating other parts of your day. Automating communications, document preparations, even the process that your staff use on a day-to-day basis means that lawyers become more efficient. And there are powerful tools out there, says the man from Actionstep, that will allow you to customize your practice to how you want it to behave. You can set permissions and customizations so that your teams can work independently or collaboratively, depending on what your business needs. For an example of how you can customize a system to be able to suit your own needs, I'm actually now going to pass over to Scotty, and he's going to tell you about a solution that he's been able to build out to be able to address compliance needs.
Thanks, Duncan, for that intro, and hi to everyone on the webinar today. So my name's Scotty Jenkins. I'm one of the Actionstep consulting partners based in Timaru, down the South Island, for those that know where that is. And I have last year been approached by several law firms, to be fair, wanting a solution that is built within Actionstep for AML. So how this kind of first came about was when AML was a requirement for law firms that kind of came into place mid last year. And so I've created an AML add-on to Actionstep, which has the ability to also move and change, be adopted over time. So as things change, legislation changes, it can be adjusted if need be within your own practice. It is a fine balancing act to have something that is easy to both use and also be detailed in the same regard. The main point of the add-on is for you to have the ability to search for information within your own Actionstep database and produce the end of year report in a timely manner by using the filter options within the list views. There is a good number of firms that now have the workflow I'm going to show you installed, and others I've spoken to do find it a wee bit too much detail from a compliance point of view. So the main benefit having it installed is having all the data in one central location and being able to filter on it and also do self-audits within your own database. There are still many firms that are not recording AML information that I've seen, and having the ability to see or not be able to see actual information within Actionstep. So what I want to do is do a demo with you. I do have a couple other things before we jump into it around the concerns of AML, and that is the ability to report and monitor the data within your own firm in a timely manner, and also being able to record AML data, and so it's all in one place. Using common sense is a big part of completing the data as well. The main reason for creating the AML add-on was, as I said at the start, there were several firms that did struggle with having the AML data all in one place, and or knowing where to start within Actionstep. There was some key challenges, which was having a solution to be installed so it could be used with any legal firm out there. There is many different meta types that you can create in Actionstep, and to have one that more or less was a standalone one, so you could use it with any other meta type, was kind of the key advantage and kind of the only way to do it easily that other firms can then use. So after working with several firms throughout New Zealand to come up with a workflow and reporting ability to search within the data for a lot of Actionstep customers that are on the call today, it will seem somewhat familiar. For those that are not on the call, that are not Actionstep users, then also feel free to pick up some information on how Actionstep can be customized, worked, and made, or see the ability to be changed for such things such as AML. And also you might pick up the odd thing to put back in your own practice. So the outcome was to have a workflow to easily install, create a risk assessment based on the questions required, and be able to file your annual report easily with the DIA. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Can everyone see Actionstep? Hopefully. And what I'm going to do is run through creating a client first of all, and then using creating a matter and running the risk assessment form. So I'll kick off. So in Actionstep, normally we just go in and create a matter. There is a way, there's a web form as well built in that I've got within this add-on, so you can actually have that on your website and pull a lot of the information in to save you time. So I'm just going to start with creating a client. So if I come down and create a client in here, and under the name, I'm just going to use a generic name like James Smith. And as I scroll down, there's other information in here we would fill out as we would normally do. We'll just put a random email in here. And down the bottom, when I get to the very bottom of the page, it asks for the contact type. And this is where the start of the AML data pulls in from the client type. So I've selected client, and this is where we can have our overall risk assessment rating. We can store the passport number, issue expiry date, issue of country for the passport, and then we can also ask questions as in, has the passport document been saved? And then we have other data in here being around the relationship to the customer, if there's been suspicious activity reports, if we've done if we need to do an internal suspicious activity report, if it's required, is the document saved, and how many have been put against the client. So we can, once we've loaded in the initial contact, then we can create the matter. So in my demo, I've got one AML matter type, and this is what would be installed within your own database if it was something you were using. We're going to put a matter name in, so this is a sale property, and the client is going to be who we've just loaded in, which was James Smith, and I'll be the lawyer. As we come down from here, we've got a lot more metadata. So this is where you can explain the transaction of the firm's involvement. And that might just be similar of sale of the property. Just so we know this is all legit, I'll put the time at my end as 12:16 p.m. Because then we can see that show on the risk assessment form when we produce it. And then there's a whole list of questions, and these are the risk assessment questions based within on the risk assessment form. And the idea is they're all defaulted, they're all required, but they're actually defaulted to a dash. And the dash means that then when we're looking at reports, we know what has or hasn't been completed. So if we go through, and I'm not going to fill all of these out because I just want to give you the idea of doing some of them. I'll leave some blank. And whoever is your AML officer within your firm, you can then go through and check the data at any stage, any date, under any matter, client, etc. So I'm just going to quickly fill a few more of these in. We'll put today's date in there, leave some blank as I said. And I'm going to go create matter. So once that matter's been created, it does a couple things. Under the matters tab up the top, under views, I have two different views in here. One is a AML risk assessment, which shows all the AML data that's ever been loaded in. So I've got the matter name and the client associated, and then all the answers to all the questions going across. And so this list in a lot of firms is thousands of lines long, but we can see quite easily where data has not been populated. And so that's where you can go back and either update that, or if you need to actually, find out more information, you can always go back and update that. So it's a good way to filter. And talking about filters, all those fields are in the filter area. So if we wanted to see what hasn't been completed, or if it's a date range, what has been still a nil or nothing been completed, we can create those filters within the within here and just search on that data. So if we want to see what's high risk, or if anything, like if all of these should be no, but we'll just want to see yes, then we can create it just to show the ones that we need. The other view is a suspicious activity report view. And my data doesn't have much in there, but it's similar layout to that. And again, we can filter just so it brings one of these up. There's also a filter within the contacts area under the AML data. And so this is pulling more the passport information. Are they high or low risk? Has it been saved? And so a couple of those names may sound familiar. And so you can come across and look at all the data within this view as well. And also again, filter, and you can filter on, say, expiry dates that are coming up to expire. So you can see quite easily which ones have expired or are about to expire. So that's kind of the main benefit of using the list views and recording all that data. I just want to come back and jump into that matter I created and pull some of the, or generate the risk assessment form. So in here, under the documents area, I'm just going to come down to generate, and under generate, I'm going to select my risk assessment form, and I'm just going to hit download and go generate on there. And then once that pops up in Word, you'll be able to see from the data that I've entered in how it is presented within Word. So I'll just give that one quick second, and that's just loading in Word now, and I'll drag that across so hopefully everyone can see that. So this is the risk assessment form. That was the time I put in when the first text box that I entered, and these are all the questions coming down in here. So you can see at the top, it's got my demo logo, it's got my name, the client's name, the date the form was completed, and then we can see, okay, this is missing data, and we can easily see if it's yes, it's high. So we see there's a high there, there's another one there, and so we can come down, easily determine if this is going to be high risk or not, or if it's standard. So from the questions I've just randomly put in, this would actually be high risk, and this is where I can type any other information, and I can get the form, either PDF it, save it, and then upload that into Actionstep, or if I just do it on Word and insert a signature, I can then use the add in Word function and save it back into Actionstep through the Actionstep Microsoft integration. So that's the risk assessment form, and from there the other part is the suspicious activity report fields, and this is a multi-row data, so you can have multiple records in here if there was more than one. So if I go new record, I can load in the information, what is on screen, what you're seeing right now. Some of this data is linked to other clients within the database, and once I save that, that will actually create one line, and then I can actually create another one if there was more than one suspicious activity taking place. So so that's just pointing that one out as well. The other field I did miss, under my contact, if I just navigate back to James here and go edit, if this was a company, down the bottom under our default types, there's a company AML, and when I tick that, then more data at the bottom would pop up as well. And so there's custom data at a company, trust, and client level. So I just thought I'd quickly point that out. So that's kind of a very quick overview of the Matter AML workflow and data collection within Actionstep that I've created, that is available for those that are interested to be purchased and installed, and my details will be up at the end of the webinar if you are interested in that, to contact me. But the other huge benefit of this is I've dealt with a firm locally who uses Actionstep, have used this for about 12 months, and it took them about 30 minutes to complete their annual report. There was, and what I'm working on is to try and make all those risk assessment questions to be 100% everything in there, so that risk assessment, the end of your report can be completed 100% straight out of Actionstep. So it's more or less there. There's only one or two questions that just the way they were on the form are slightly different. So I'm just adjusting that now. So so that's me done. To finish off, if anyone would like to find out more, as I said, my details will be up at the end of this webinar. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Scotty. So everyone, my name is Tyler. Many of you may have spoken with me before. So I am an account manager here at Actionstep. And to sort of wrap this up, I just thought I would pose just a few questions and some key points just in terms of going forward, how do firms embrace change? So what sort of processes can easily make it so that change isn't so difficult within your firm, just from sort of a technology and processes point of view? So the three themes that I did want to talk about were just flexibility of your systems, interoperability, and additionally automation. So I guess the first with flexibility from a systems standpoint is I just wanted to sort of pose a question really, was when it comes to your systems, it's quite important to ask when you are adopting new things, or when you're currently looking at your systems that are currently in place, is how quickly can you adapt with the systems that you are currently using? So are they flexible? Do they allow you to make changes? Do they allow your business to pivot as new pieces of legislation like AML come into place? And we've talked with a lot of different firms here in New Zealand over the past year since AML has come up, and heard some of their different stories, and that actually includes from partners of ours as well. So here in Auckland, we do have ASB is actually down the street from us, and they are one of our partners. And even just having a conversation with them a few weeks ago, and we've heard quite a few stories of firms that have actually chosen to close rather than make the changes and make the pivots that they need for to actually be able to manage AML. And a lot of that comes down to not having the flexibility, unfortunately, to be able to make those changes within the firm. So if you aren't using a system that has the ability to adapt and change, then I guess the second question would really be, when the landscape does change, how quickly will my solution providers change with it? So I guess what that just comes down to is when something like AML does come into place and I don't have a system that I do have the ability to change, then it is worth posing the question to your solution providers, when will they be adjusting your systems for you for things like AML? So are your providers focused on New Zealand? Are they paying attention to the most recent legislation? So that is quite an important point. And another important point is also knowing, do those different systems have the ability to even connect with other third-party applications that can help piece together a solution for your firm? So that's also just being sure to pay attention to what integrations and connections your systems have with other potential solution providers, or if they're even just open to connecting with other applications. So there's lots of very interesting ID verification technologies that are coming online now as a response to AML, and it's just important to ask the question, are your solution providers open to integrating with those, or do you have the ability to even piece that together through open applications? And I guess just the final piece, which was also touched on by my colleague Duncan, is just automation. So do your current systems have the ability to remove that low value admin work so that you can continue to focus on your clients' needs? So that's things such as that end of year reporting for the DIA. That's things such as those risk assessment forms that have to be filled in, and whether those can be automated. So it's just worth asking yourselves, when you are auditing your systems, can those remove the new admin work that the changing legal market is having introduced? So with that, I think now would be a good time just to open this session up to some different questions. So I'm going to send this back to David so he can go through that curation process. David?
Thanks, Tyler, and thanks everyone for hanging in there. I hope that was a helpful set of themes and discussion topics. I see there are 5 or 6 questions here on the chat that actually look to me to be quite directed, and some of them quite specific around AML. Scotty, do you want to have a look at some of these? I see Michelle has asked, so will you have to complete the AML assessment when you open each matter? Is that a simple yes, no?
Yeah, so it's been kind of developed, I suppose, in a way so it can be used, if it's a conveyancing matter as an example, you would normally want to do it per matter that you open. So some firms do that. I know other firms have engaged me to actually change the AML workflow. It's been designed to have it per matter that is open. There are others that have it open just once, and they record, we change it so they can record multiple lines in there. So then each engagement, they just use the one matter and record several lines for each. You know, if you buy a property today, 2 months later, or a year later, you sell it, you use that one matter. In that example, the risk assessment form wouldn't work, but you can because it doesn't know which data to pull on it. So there are ways around that, and it just really depends on if you save a wee bit of time, then you lose other functionality, but you can still change all the filters to pull that data. So it is potentially possible.
And that might be a similar answer to Jan there, who I think is quite a long question, but it looks like this is the question of whether you need to open it in those matters or whether you can have a different workflow as you've described.
Yeah, so I probably didn't explain when I was within there. You'd have an AML matter open. So you do your client, do your AML matter. If it's all good, then you'd then open your conveyancing matter and carry on from there. So you'd actually have two matters open. The names would be the same in both, and you can actually have a file reference to link both together as well. So yes, there's a lot more kind of AML like matters out there and about with the same numbers, but they reflect to each other. You wouldn't do in the AML matter, I suppose, would have all that AML data files or anything saved into it. So that's how a lot of firms are using it. The standalone, so it's created each time, but as I said, if you didn't want to have it open each time, you can have just one, which would then be called the client name as the AML matter name in there, and then you just record each kind of engagement, I call it engagement, or like matter, sale, property, whatever in there, but then you just lose the ability to generate your risk assessment form for each time because it doesn't know which data you're using to put it on there. So there is ways around it.
All right, thanks, Scotty. And then I see another one here, Melissa, a slightly different question. How do you get your annual report information from the AML add-on?
So from firms I've talked to, it is a combination of using the questions that have been answered in there, filtering, and then if, because in that year-end report there, it talks a lot about percentage of fees, etc. And so then it's having a list of those matters that the question is related to, and then you can actually drill in to get the monetary amounts, or we can have a time filter based on those ones as well. So there is ways to filter and view that information within there.
Okay, and maybe it might be worth, I don't know whether we'll talk about this maybe afterwards, but maybe a how-to on that might be useful to the attendees. Let's see if we can come up with that for you, Melissa, and others that might have asked that question. Is Actionstep integrating with an online ID verification provider? I can talk about it, which is a topic that we've been discussing. And through our API framework, so that goes back to some of Tyler's comments around flexibility. We can create a integration point for an online ID verification provider. We haven't done it yet, but it is a hot topic right now, and we're considering options to do that. So Alistair, I hope that addresses your question. So it's a no right now, but could be imminent. Does the work type become AML, and therefore you cannot have work types as conveyancing or trust, etc.?
So kind of covered that in the last answer, where you'd have an AML matter type open, and that's just for those really capturing the data, and then you'd if you could move on to actually engage and do your open your conveyancing matter, then that would all be there. So you'd more or less have two open.
Great. I think Hannah said that she might thought that had been answered. Great. And then maybe one last one here. We've just slightly run over, but there seems to be a lot of you still in attendance, so it's great. Hope this is helpful. Can the AML workflow be tailored for non-capture activities matters which don't require risk assessment?
Yes, it can. And so it really depends on what you. If you don't want to answer have those questions in there, you can either use it as a template to kind of work off, or get an idea of what it is and just change it up. So because Actionstep is quite customizable, anything can really be done in there, just depending on what questions you want to ask or need to ask, and if they're at a client level or a matter level.
And one final one, Scotty, there I see from Hannah. Is there an option to add one or more ID? We saw only a passport there.
Definitely. So you can have that's unlimited to a certain degree. So you can have passport, you could have driver's license, you could have anything in there.
Okay, well, thanks, Scotty. Thank you, Duncan, and thank you, Tyler, and thank you, everyone, from joining us. That's all we had planned for today. We will be scheduling further webinars. We'd really appreciate your feedback. If you feel you would like to give it to us, whether this was valuable or not, I think you can leave some in here, or be happy to take any emails or messages from you all too. But thanks very much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.